Hello everyone, welcome back to my class. This is Mehjabin Fatima, a teacher at Elizabeth High School and Junior College. We have completed 16th chapter in Social Studies subject of 6th standard. Today we are going to start 17th chapter, that is Religion and Society in Early Times. Now let's begin with our chapter. India is a multi-religious country. People worship gods and goddesses in many ways. Some people offer flowers to their sacred idols, some perform yagnas, some chant holy hymns silently, and some do not worship any idol. Some people never pray at all. Let us read about some religious practices and beliefs of people of the earlier Indian society. So, we all know that our country India, it is multi-religious country. Here the citizens of our country, they are following different religions, and some people they worship the gods, whereas some people they are having the goddesses in many ways, and some people they are offering flowers to their sacred idols, and some people will perform yagna and chant holy hymns, and there are some peoples who do not worship at all. Now in this session we will read about the peoples, their religious practices and beliefs of the Indian early society. Let's see about hunter-gatherers. You had read about the earlier hunter-gatherers. We know a little about their religions, beliefs from their paintings and burials. We can also know about their religion by studying the religion of today's hunter-gatherers like the Chenches. So, maybe you have read about the earlier hunter-gatherers, and we know about their religious beliefs with the help of their paintings and burials. It appears that painting and dance were important parts of the religious lives of the hunter-gatherers. They probably painted hunted scenes or danced imitate a hunting scene and believed that this would give them a good hunt. Sometimes they dressed themselves as animals, wore masks and danced. They also danced hand in hand. Hunter-gatherers believed that the forest and wild animals were sacred and had to be worshipped. Animals should not be killed except when needed. They worship many animals too by drawing their pictures on caves. So, it appears that in the paintings and dances that were important parts of the religious lives of the hunter-gatherers. They used to dance and imitate a hunting scene, and they believed that by imitating a hunting scene, this would give them a good hunt, and sometimes they will also dress themselves as animals and they will wear mask and dance, and they will do dance. They will also dance by hand in hand, and hunter-gatherers believe that the forest and wild animals they were sacred and had to be worshipped, and they should be killed only when they are in serious, and they should not be killed. If they are killing the animals, that should be seriously needed. They will draw the paintings of the animals and they will dance in front of those paintings. Now, archaeological excavation shows that many earlier hunters buried the dead along with some objects of use. Probably they believed that life continues even after death, and hence made these arrangements for the afterlife of the dead person. So, when the archaeologists they did excavations, they found out that earlier hunters they buried the dead along with some objects of use, and by thinking that after death there is again a life, means the life will continue after death. So, by thinking this, they are burying the dead along with some objects, and they will think that after death they would use these arrangements for their another life. The 12th century book in Tamil called Periyapuram describes the religious practices of hunter-gatherers living near Sri Kailashashi and narrates the famous story of Bhakta Kannappa. He acted as priest and made offerings of meat, honey, fruits and flowers to the god Mahashiva. So, in the 12th century, there is a book in Tamil which is called as Periyapuram. It described about the religious practices of the hunter-gatherers who are living in the Sri Kailashashi, and it narrates the famous story of the Bhakta Kannappa who acted as a priest and made offerings of meat, honey, fruits and flowers to the god Mahashiva. To this day, the Chenches of Nallamala hills worship forest goddesses called Garelamsamma or Gangamma by making offerings to her and by dancing. They also worship Malaya of Srisailam and Narasimha of Ahobilam. They believed that these gods had married Chenchu girls and therefore they were their son-in-laws. So today there is a Chenchas in Nallamalla hills where the forest goddesses is called Garelayam, Summa and Gangamma, and the people they would make offerings to these goddesses by dancing, and they also worship the Malaya of Sri Sailam of Narasimha or Ahobilam. Let's see about earlier farmers and herders. Archaeological excavations in early villages show that they probably worshipped mother goddesses and mother earth. They probably believed that the crops and cattle would prosper with her blessings. Mother goddesses were worshipped in the form of small images or simply in the form of stone, a tree or a plant. So archaeological excavations in the early villages shows us that these people, they probably worship the mother goddesses or mother earth, and they would probably believe that the crops and cattle would prosper with her blessings. They means these people, they will think that by worshipping these goddesses they would get good crops and good cattle as their blessings. And these mother goddesses were worshipped in the form of small images or in simply the form of a stone, a tree or a plant. Shepherds in India today are known by different names across the country. Dhangar in Maharashtra, Kurubas in Karnataka and Kurumal, Golla Yadava in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. So these shepherds, they are called in India with different names like Dhangar in Maharashtra, Kurubas in Karnataka, Kuruma Golla in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, etc. And they worship special deities like Malamma, Birappa, Renuka, Yellamma, Maisamma, Pochamma, etc. These shepherds, they will worship to different deities. Farmers also rear animals and have close interaction with herders. Hence, both of them worship similar gods. A common mode of worship is by building small shrines of these gods and goddesses in the corner of the village. On special occasions are organized in which animals like ram, cock and sacrificed and cooked rice offerings are made by the entire community. They usually pray for good harvest, freedom from disease, welfare of children, etc. So the farmers, they are also having same belief like these shepherds, and they both will worship the similar gods, and the common mode of worship is by building small shrines of these gods and goddesses at the corner of the village. And on the special occasions, these people, they will organize a celebration in which the animals like ram, cock, they are sacrificed and they will be cooked. And in this occasion, these people, they will pray for the good harvest, freedom from any disease or for the welfare of their children. Let's see about religion in the Indus Valley civilization. Several cities emerged in the northwestern parts of the subcontinent in the plains of the Indus River some 4,600 years ago. These cities lasted for nearly 900 years and then declined. This is called Harappan culture. So there are the several cities which has been emerged in the northwestern parts of the subcontinent and in the plains of the Indus River Valley. These cities, they have been lasted for nearly 900 of years and then they have been declined, and this is called as Harappan culture. These cities were inhabited by many kinds of craftspersons, potters, carpenters, stone bead makers, gold and silver jewelers, weavers, coppersmiths, masons, etc. Besides traders, administrators and rulers, among the ruins, baths, granaries, storehouses, public buildings, roads, drains and houses of ordinary people were found. However, until now, no big temple was found. Several mother goddess figures were found. It also seems that they had several trees including the people as sacred, and also probably worships of animals. Pictures of a male gods were also found. So these cities, they were inhabited by many kinds of crafty persons like potters, carpenters, etc. And beside them, there are also traders, administrators and rulers. And among the ruins, they were having buildings, roads, drains and houses of ordinary people. But at that time, no big temple was found. Instead of that, they have found out several mother goddesses figures, and it also seems that it held several trees including the people as sacred and is also probably worshipped by some animals. And there are the pictures of some male gods which have been found out here. Let's see about religion of the Vedas. The Vedas are the earliest surviving literature of the Indian subcontinent. There are 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda and the Atharva Veda. Of these, the Rig Veda is the oldest and was composed about 3500 years ago. The Vedas composed by rishis consisted of hymns and prayers for welfares. So, in the earlier surviving literature of the Indian subcontinent, there were 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda and the Atharva Veda, and among these Vedas, the Rig Veda was the oldest and was composed about 3500 years ago. And these Vedas, they were composed by rishis and they have been consisted of hymns and prayers for the welfare. These hymns were in praise of various gods and goddesses. 3 gods were especially important: Agni, the god of fire; Indra, a warrior god; and Soma, a plant from which a special drink was prepared. Priest taught students to recite and memorize each syllable, word and sentence bit by bit with great care. Most of the hymns were composed, taught and learnt by men. A few were composed by women. So, these hymns were the praises of the gods and the goddesses, and there are 3 mainly gods to which these people they will worship. And the first one is Agni, that is the god of fire, and Indra, and second one is Indra, a warrior god, and third one is Soma, who is a plant, which is a plant from which a special drink was prepared. And these priests, they used to teach their students to recite and memorize each syllable, each word bit by bit with great care, and mostly these hymns were taught by the men and a few were composed by the women. And these people, they used to recite these hymns mainly during the performance of yagnas or rituals during which offerings were made to the fire. There are many prayers in the Rig Veda to pray for cattle, children, especially sons and horses. Historians who study the Vedas guess from these descriptions that the Vedic people mainly reared animals like cows and horses. They lived in the northwestern part of the India and the region between the Hindu Kush mountains and the Yamuna river. So, there are many prayers in the Rig Veda which pray for the cattle, children and horses. Historians who have been studied about the Vedas, they guess from these descriptions that the Vedic people, they mainly reared the animals like cows and horses, and they lived in the northern western part of the India in the region between the Hindu Kush mountains and the Yamuna river. The Vedic people lived in small janas or tribal habitations, each with its own leader. The tribes also had some priests called Brahmins who performed the sacrifices and recited the hymns. So, these Vedic people, they lived in the small janas of the tribal habitations, and each has its own leader, and the tribes, they also had some priests which are called as Brahmins who used to perform the sacrifices and they used to recite the hymns, and the leaders and the ordinary people of that tribe would give the gifts to those Brahmins. These tribes often had to fight with each other for control over cows, pastures and water sources. Horses were yoked to chariots that were used in the battles that were fought to capture cattle. So, these tribes, they used to had a fight between them for having the control over cows, pastures and water sources, and horses were also yoked to chariots that were used in the battles. Now let us see what is worshipping dead ancestors, the megaliths of the Deccan. Megaliths are built with stone boulders. Megalith literally means big stones. These boulders were carefully managed by people and were used to mark burial sites. The practice of erecting megaliths began about 3000 years ago and was prevalent throughout the Deccan, South India, in the northeast and Kashmir. So, these megaliths, they were built with stone boulders, and megaliths literally means big stones, and these boulders were carefully arranged by the people, that is used as the mark of the burial sites, and this practice has begun about 3000 years ago. While some megalith burials can be seen in the surface, several are underground. Some megalith burials we can see on the surface, whereas some are found in the underground. These are the only indications that are there burials beneath. Sometimes megaliths contain more than one skeleton. These indicate that people perhaps belonging to the same family were buried in the same place. though not at the same time. All these burials have some common features. Generally, the dead were buried with distinctive pots, which are called black and red ware, many tools and weapons of iron, and sometimes buried skeletons of horses, horse equipment, and ornaments of stones and gold were also found in beneath these boulders. So, under these boulders we can see the skeletons of the people perhaps belonging to the same family, we can say, and where they are buried in the same place though not at the same time. And all these burials, they are having some common features, like generally these dead were buried with distinctive pots which are called as black and red ware, and they were having many tools and weapons of irons, and sometimes these buried skeletons of horses, horse equipments, and ornaments of stone and gold were also found. It seems that these people were among the first of the subcontinent to use iron tools on the large scale. So, it seems that these people have used iron tools on a large scale. They also practiced rice cultivation and using tank irrigation. They considered important to worship the dead ancestors of the tribe by building such megalithic memorial or burials. So, they also consider that it is very important for them to worship their ancestors who are dead, and by building such megalith memorials and burials. Now, let's see megaliths of Telangana. A large number of burial sites have been found near hills, fields and irrigation tanks. Almost all types of megaliths, mountains like menhirs or large dressed rocks, stone circles, dolmen, were located in hundreds of villages in all the districts of Telangana. See the pictures. Megaliths burials contained a large variety of pottery like black and red, the black polished and iron objects. So, there is a large number of burial sites which have been found near hills, fields or irrigation tanks, and almost all types of megalith monuments like menhirs and large dressed rocks, stone circles were located in hundreds of villages in the districts of the Telangana. And these megalith burial contains a large variety of pottery and some handmade clear stone sarcophagi or containers for remains of the dead body, and potrons were found in some of the burial sites. New questions in the age of the Janapadas and the cities. In these places, people of different backgrounds, hunter-gatherers, herders, artisans, Vedic people and other interacted with each other and settled down together. They learnt about each other's religious practices and ideas and adopted them. Thus, a mixed religious culture developed in which people performed Vedic sacrifices, worshipped fire, sun, rivers, mother goddesses like monkeys, elephants, snakes and trees. They also worshipped their ancestors and believed that souls continues to live even after the death of the body and are reborn. But people were not satisfied with just observing these rituals. They were raising new questions and were seeking answers to them and were keen to discuss them with each other. Many people abandoned all other work and set out to find answers to these questions. So, we have seen about Mahajanapadas and the cities of Ganges Valley. So, these people from the different backgrounds like hunter-gatherers, herders, artisans, they all settled down together, and there they have practiced new rituals of their religions, and these practices or rituals by them have been adopted by different other peoples, and thus by this we can say mixed religious culture has been developed, where some people were performing Vedic sacrifices, they were worshipping gods or goddesses, and they also worship their ancestors, and they believe that there is a life after death. But there are some people who were not satisfied with these rituals and religious affairs. They were trying to find out the answers for different questions. Now, let's see what happens after death. There is a famous story about a young boy called Nichiketa. Perhaps you have heard this story earlier. A question arose in his mind: what happens after death? He thought that since Yama was the god of death, he should ask Yama for the answer. Nichiketa went straight to Yama to question him. In this quest for knowledge, he did not even fear the god of death. So, Nichiketa went to Yama and asked him what happens after death. So, there is a famous story of a young boy who is called as Nichiketa, and he had a question in his mind that what will happen after death, and to find out its answer he went to Yama, who is the god of death, and he thought of asking the question to him, that is Yama, about what happens after death. So Nichiketa, he went to Yama and he asked the question which is in his mind, that is what will happen after death. Yama wanted to avoid answering this complex question. He offered Nichiketa lots of gold, silver and cows if only he would not insist on asking this question. But Nichiketa stuck on his question and forced Yama to answer. Lord Yama was happy by seeing the determination and zeal of Nichiketa. He said human beings are like those who follow the blind. They are in the delusion that everything is in the materialistic pleasures. They can neither fulfill nor kill their recurring desires, hence take rebirth in this world again. Truly, only Atma is permanent in this world. How can that be achieved with something that is momentary? Thus, Yama Dharmaraja explained the essence of Atma to Nichiketa. Nichiketa was satisfied with the Lord Yama's answer and returned. This story is from a book called the Kathopanishad, where this story was written. Let's see, why is there sorrow in this world? How can one attain freedom from sorrow? Gautama Buddha. Like Mahavira, Gautama Buddha too was born in a Gama Sangha. He found that people everywhere were miserable and in conflict with each other. He began to think, how can we get rid of this misery? So like Mahavira, this Gautama Buddha was also born in Gana Sangha, and he found out that people everywhere are miserable and in conflict with each other. So Gautama Buddha began to think that how to get rid of this misery. Gautama also left his family and home in search of answers to questions. He became a Parivarajka, and after years of penance and meditations arrived at some answers to these questions. According to Gautama Buddha, sorrow is caused by excessive cravings and desire. We can attain freedom from sorrow if we control our desires. So this Gautama Buddha, he left his family to find out his answers. He left his home and he became a Parivarajka. And after some years of penance and meditations, he arrived at home with his answers. And according to Gautama Buddha, sorrow is caused by excessive desires and cravings. So we can only come out of such misery by controlling our desires. In order to gain control over our desires, we need to live a balanced and controlled life. We should not cause pain to any living being. Buddha taught that one should avoid extreme penance or extreme pleasures, but instead follow a middle path. That is why Buddhism is also called the Great Middle Path. The teachings of Buddha came to be known as Buddhism. The teachings of Buddha and his followers have been compiled in 3 collections, Triptikas, called the Sutta Pitaka, the Abhidhamma Pitaka and Vinaya Pitaka. So the teachings of Buddha have been compiled into 3 collections, that is also called as Triptikas. So this is all about our chapter, that is religion and society in early times, where we have learnt about different types of religions and cultures in the earlier period. I hope you understood this chapter very well. Let's continue with next chapter in the next class. Thank you.